So, just one record can change your mood. You know, if you're feeling depressed or anything, you can just put one record on, and instantly you're in a different place and you're happy or whatever. Hello, this is Chris Lowe, welcoming you to Blackpool Tower Ballroom. That's not easy.
Well, we lived in a middle-class housing estate on the edge of Newcastle in North Gosforth. In fact, we moved there in 1957, I think, when I was about 3, and my parents still live there. And in those days, it was right at the edge of Newcastle, so there were fields behind us, there was a farm behind us. So we used to get cows in the back gardens. And then I went to Catholic schools, because we were Catholics. The first one was run by nuns.
When I look back upon my life, it's always with a sense of shame. I've always been the one to blame. For everything I long to do, no matter when or where or who, has one thing in common too. It's the sin.
And then I went to St Cuthbert's Grammar School, and it was a sort of a sporty school. It was very football-y, and I had not no interest in football. I never even played football before, to be honest, and I was incredibly bad at it.
Everything's possible. We're on the same side, or otherwise, on trial for our lives.
I never really felt I fitted in there, because I didn't really fit in.
I think Blackpool was quite a fun place to grow up. I was born on a street, and at the end of the road was the pleasure beach. And we were brought here as children as soon as we could walk, maybe before. So from a very early age, we were taken on the pleasure beach. And I seem to spend most of my life, any spare time, on there. The pleasure beach is always changing. That's one of the great things about it. There's always a new ride being built and old ones disappearing. And, you know, I worked here, a summer job once, operating the big wheel just down there. And if you're born in Blackpool, this is the place that you'll just sort of hang out and sort of take for granted, really. There used to be a very marked contrast between the last day of the season and then the very next day. It would go from very busy to very quiet instantly. But I always liked both. I always liked it when it was packed with all the tourists, and then it was really great when it became this dead, seaside, boarded-up town. And I've always liked that as well, so I like both aspects of it, and I think that's probably reflected in my personality. I sort of like the morose and the fun. So I've always thought that music is about making people happy and having a good time. So I think that's because I come from Blackpool.
They had the Young People's Theatre, which met on Saturday mornings. And it was at that time my mother said to me that she had a friend who acted here. So I started to come here then when I was just 11 years old. And I came every Saturday morning, and I was never a very good actor, by the way.
My grandfather played the trombone. I think it's probably because of him and because of my mother that they insisted that I, learned the piano. And of course, because I played a trombone in a local northern brass band, that's probably why I do music, because of them.
This is the Literary and Philosophical Society in Newcastle, and it's always known as the Lit and Phil, for short. And I joined it when, I guess, I was 16 or something, and all my friends joined it. It's a library, which is great, because I've always been interested in books. I love just looking through old books and stuff. But also, it's quite a sociable place. People come here and just have a cup of coffee, and you can read the papers and the latest periodicals and magazines. And there's a room downstairs called the Loftus Room, where we used to sit and smoke cigarettes and chat. We used to get into trouble for making too much noise. I mean, because we were all 16, 17, and there was a whole gang of us. I would sort of sympathise now. I'd probably be complaining now.
I was a swot at school and was determined to get good exam results because I wanted to go to university to do architecture. We were always moving house when I was young, and so I became obsessed with house designs and the plans and stuff. And I think I was just always interested in buildings.
So we were interested in theatre and music and David Bowie and what have you. And we liked this place because it was a secret world within Newcastle.
Friends? Oh, I never had any friends.
At the same time as I'm talking about, Newcastle was a rough place. It was quite scary. That made you feel a bit like an outsider in Newcastle. I mean, I was always thinking I would leave Newcastle. We were in London. In 1972, I moved to London, and I lived in Tottenham for 3 years. We were in London, 12 o'clock it is. I went to North London Polytechnic, I only got 2 A-levels, so I was going to go to Nottingham University to do history and archaeology. Why I was going to do archaeology, I have no idea. It was a complete whim. And so I couldn't get in. But North London Polytechnic in those days was the only polytechnic that did history.
I think it was inevitable that I'd end up in London because when in the architecture course there's a year when you have to work in an architect's office after the 3rd year. And I don't know, I only applied to architectural offices in London. So obviously I didn't really consider going anywhere else. But I think there was an inevitability to ending up in London. I mean, it's kind of where everything is really, isn't it? That sounds awful, that you're not using that. There's no point living anywhere else. No, I think that London does have a big draw. You know, it's a shame because I think it's a shame for your family when you just, you know, up and off somewhere, make somewhere else your home. But...
within 3 weeks of doing my degree, I was working at Marvel Comics as the London production editor. And we had 7 comics, weekly comics, edited down from American monthly comics like Spider-Man and Incredible Hulk and Conan the Barbarian. And that set me off in a career in publishing, which I was in for the next 10 years, because then I worked for book publishers, and then I ended up at Smash Hits. I sat in my bedroom and wrote songs all the time, and I used to play them to my friends. No time to lose, and where's the thief who'll tell you everything you've ever known? There's a man on the television. And that's what I was doing when I met Chris. It was in August 1981, and I bought a synthesizer. And I got it at home, and I suddenly thought, I don't know how... What do I plug it into, though? Because it didn't have a speaker in it. And I had a sort of stereo system like everyone had then. And so I went down to the hi-fi shop at the King's Road, and I said this, and they made me a jack going into 2-pin stereo thing. And but they had to make it. They stood there and they were welding at the back. And Chris Lowe walked in.
It must have been fate, although I don't believe in fate, because neither of us are the sort of people that just start friendships like that, you know, talk to strangers. I
told him about the synthesizer, and I gave him my phone number, and he phoned up about 3 days later. And he came round and we started to write a song.